So what if I told you that one of history's greatest pessimists might actually hold the key to navigating our modern, super anxious world? I know, it sounds completely backwards, but stick with me. Today, we're going to explore why a philosopher from the 19th century is maybe more relevant than he's ever been. All right, let's dive right in.
Let's just start with this number, 301 million. According to the World Health Organization, that's how many people all around the globe were dealing with an anxiety disorder back in 2019. And yeah, you heard that right. That was before everything that's happened since. It's an absolutely staggering figure, and it really sets the stage for what we're talking about today.
And, well, no surprise here, the situation has only gotten more intense. The WHO reports that anxiety surged, get this, by a massive 25% in just the first year of the pandemic. So this isn't just a vibe or a feeling people have. Nope, this is a documented global shift.
All of which brings us to the big question, right? Welcome to the anxious age. Why do so many of us feel this way? Well, the answer, and this is the surprising part, might just come from a guy who was convinced life was, inherently a pretty rough deal.
Okay, let's meet our guide for today, Arthur Schopenhauer. Now, when you hear philosopher of pessimism, you're probably thinking, oh great, a total downer. But think of him less as a bringer of despair and more like a really clear-eyed doctor for the human soul. His own life was packed with struggle, and that gave him this unique, totally unflinching view on why we suffer.
And seriously, his life story gives so much context for his philosophy. Just look at this timeline. His dad's suspected suicide completely shatters his youth. Then he pours his soul into his masterpiece, and it's published to total silence, crickets. He tries to launch an academic career, and it fails, spectacularly. We're talking just 5 students. After that, he basically becomes a recluse for decades. So you see, these ideas of his, they weren't just abstract thoughts. They were forged in some really tough personal hardship.
Life swings like a pendulum, backward and forward between pain and boredom. Wow, I mean, this quote right here, this is the heart of his entire diagnosis. And for Schopenhauer, this wasn't just some cynical one-liner. He saw it as a fundamental law of being human. Think about it. We're always caught between wanting something, which is a kind of pain, right? And then getting it, which pretty quickly just leads to boredom and, you guessed it, a brand new desire. Sound familiar at all?
So what's the engine behind this relentless pendulum swing? What's making it go back and forth, back and forth? Well, Schopenhauer pointed to this powerful, totally unseen force that drives this whole cycle of dissatisfaction. And for him, this wasn't just a human thing. It was the fundamental reality of the entire universe.
He called it the will. And right away, we have to be super clear about something. This is not about personal willpower, like your determination to go to the gym. For him, the will, with a capital W, is this blind, irrational cosmic energy. It's this constant, hungry striving that animates literally everything. That plant pushing through concrete to find the sun, that's the will. Our own relentless, often unconscious desires, that's the will at work too.
Yeah, let's break this down a little more, because it's a really crucial point. Think of it like an iceberg. What you see above the water, that's your personal willpower, your conscious effort to get a promotion or learn a skill. But the massive, invisible part of the iceberg below the surface, that is the will. That's the unconscious, universal force that's really steering the ship. In Schopenhauer's view, our little willpower is just a tiny servant to this huge, insatiable master.
So how does this actually show up in our modern lives? Oh, it's everywhere. Think about that endless dopamine-fueled scroll on your phone, that constant gnawing fear of missing out, or FOMO, that feeling of burnout from always chasing the next promotion. Schopenhauer would point at all of that and say, see? That's it! That's the will's aimless striving in action. We get the thing we were chasing, and for a split second it's great, but then, poof, the satisfaction vanishes, and we're already hungry for the next thing.
All right, so if we're all just puppets of this giant cosmic force, is it hopeless? Are we doomed? According to Schopenhauer, not at all. See, he wasn't just here to diagnose the problem. He also offered a prescription, a set of actual practical strategies for finding moments of peace and just quieting that endless hunger. He basically laid out 3 main paths to get some relief. First up, what he called aesthetic escape. This is that moment when you get totally lost in a piece of music, a painting, or just a beautiful sunset. For that little while, you stop being you with all your wants and needs, and you just become a pure observer. Your own striving just fades away. The second path is ethical compassion.
This is about realizing that every single person around you is also being tossed around by the exact same irrational will. That suffering you feel, they feel it too. This creates this deep empathy that kind of shatters the illusion that you're the main character. And third, there's ascetic denial. Now, that sounds super intense, I know, but it's really just about consciously wanting less. Think minimalism or a digital detox. By actively reducing your desires, you're starving the will of its power over you.
And he put music on a special pedestal. For Schopenhauer, music was the highest form of art, totally unique. He believed that while a painting shows you the idea of a sunset, music bypasses ideas completely. It's a direct copy of the will itself. You can feel its tension, its release, its constant striving. That's why a powerful piece of music can feel so deeply moving and just transport you somewhere else. It lets you witness the cosmic storm without actually being stuck in it.
And this brings us to this really radical idea, the freedom of pessimism. What if being a pessimist isn't about being miserable all the time? What if it's actually a super practical tool for a better life? Think about it. By accepting that life will inevitably involve suffering, and that the idea of 24/7 happiness is a total myth, we can actually free ourselves from the constant cycle of disappointment.
And this is the really wild part. This isn't just some 200-year-old philosophical theory. It's amazing how his ideas map directly onto some of the most cutting-edge psychological therapies we use today. His idea about lowering our expectations to manage how we feel, that's a core principle of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. His whole thing about compassion through shared suffering, that's basically the foundation of empathy training in things like DBT. And that will-less contemplation of art and nature, hello, that's mindfulness. The guy was literally centuries ahead of his time.
And all of this leads to a really profound shift in what we're aiming for in life. Schopenhauer is basically asking us to change the goalposts. Instead of chasing this impossible, mythical peak of constant happiness, what if we aim for something more achievable, more real, serenity? And he had a simple definition for it. It's just the absence of pain, the absence of that endless striving and the boredom that follows. It's about finding real peace in the quiet moments, not just in the frantic chase for the next big thing.
So in the end, by diagnosing the root of our anxiety as this cosmic, restless striving, Schopenhauer doesn't just leave us in despair. Far from it. He gives us actual, practical tools, art, compassion, and just lowering our expectations to find real moments of freedom. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. If that idea of constant, perfect happiness really is an illusion, what should we be striving for instead?